Good afternoon, everybody, and it is time to do a deep dive into yesterday's Combine events. By the time you're watching this video, you're already going to start to see some stuff about the running backs and the offensive linemen from today, and that's going to be interesting, and we're definitely going to talk about it, but we got to start putting a cork in the events of yesterday, because yesterday was the fun stuff, and by fun stuff, I mean quarterbacks. So we're going to start with the quarterbacks today. A few hours from now, we're going to do a video about the receivers. And then later tonight, we're going to talk about tight ends. So we got a lot of stuff to get through here. Let's go ahead and kick it off. We already talked about Anthony Richardson in the morning video because his combine was so over-the-top good. No mention of Anthony Richardson will be in this video. This video is all about the other quarterbacks that caught my eye one way or the other. Now, I'm going to preface everything I say with this. A lot of these quarterbacks didn't do all of the drills. A lot of these quarterbacks, in fact, I think some of them mostly just showed up to throw the ball. A lot of these guys, they skipped the 40 time. A lot of them didn't do like the 3-cone or the 20-yard shuttle. Some of them just showed up to throw the ball. One of them actually didn't show up to do anything except get measured. So some of these guys were going off of limited information. But with the limited information that we have, I've got a few guys who I thought did really well at this combine who were not Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson obviously was the king yesterday. Here are some other really good performers. First, I'm going to talk about CJ Stroud. He didn't get measured in all the ways that I wanted to. Like, you can actually scroll down and see he didn't do any of the timing drills. He didn't do the 40. He didn't do the shuttle. He didn't do the 3-cone. He didn't do the jumps. He just showed up to throw the ball. And it's understandable why, because CJ Stroud is a phenomenal thrower of the ball, and his throwing session was phenomenal. He made all the throws. He made it all look easy. He made it all look natural. He showed off a big arm. He showed off an arm that can layer the throws. He is going to have one of the best arms in the NFL the moment he touches the football field with his cleats. The moment he enters the NFL, he's going to have one of the best arms out there. Now, there's probably a reason why he doesn't run the 40 because he's not going to run that fast. There's probably a reason why he's not doing like the jumps. He's not going to come out as very explosive. But that arm is so good, I think it makes up for it. And his size ended up being okay, 6'3", 214 pounds. I still think this is QB1 in this draft as of right now. So, Stroud, great throwing session. Awesome stuff there. Next guy, Will Levis. I think this guy had a nice combine. He measured well. 6'4", so basically the same height as Anthony Richardson, and 230 pounds. Plenty big enough, plenty stout enough. So, he had that stuff down. He was another guy who didn't run the 40, didn't do the 3-cone or the shuttle. His vertical jump and broad jump were both pretty good. Nothing amazing, but solid. Obviously, everything looked kind of weak compared to Anthony Richardson because he set the record in both of those categories for a quarterback. But his jumps were fine. And when the throwing session started, he showed it off. He had the cannon arm. Big arm, was able to get the ball 60 yards down the field, which is basically what Richardson and Stroud were able to do as well. I think Stroud may have had one throw that was like 62 yards. On the short and medium passes, he looked really good, I think. I think that he showed that he's probably the best quarterback in this class at throwing short and medium passes. He looked very comfortable doing it, especially to his right. So I think you see a lot of the reasons why it is widely believed Levis will fit in really well in the Shane Waldron offense, because those are the kinds of throws you got to make a lot in the Waldron offense. He missed some throws, but then he showed the ability to adjust really well after missing those throws. Like his first deep ball was off, he adjusted for the second one. So good combine for Levis. Also, I would say a good one for, this is one of the sleepers potentially, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, UCLA quarterback. It started out rough for him, admittedly, and initially I was really turned off on DTR. His throws looked bad, but as the day went on, they got a lot better. And by the end of the day, I was looking at Dorian Thompson-Robinson and thinking, he probably has a place in the NFL based off what I saw today. Showed off a pretty decent arm. Showed off some athleticism that was good. I will say, given the fact this guy has a somewhat limited frame, somewhat limited as an athlete, I would have liked to have seen more. Like, the only thing here in his combine results that's elite is his 10-yard split. Everything else is either okay or bad. Like, this 3-cone was actually really slow. It was, I think, the slowest of any quarterback who ran the 3-cone. So, given the fact that DTR is clearly going to be one of those dual-threat quarterbacks that leans heavily on his legs, I would have liked to have seen more. I think the 40-yard dash is okay, but compared to a guy like Anthony Richardson, it really leaves you wanting. Seems like his acceleration is really good. Maybe his top-line speed isn't quite there yet. So, DTR, I'm going to say, was a winner because I liked how he got better in his throwing sessions. He does have some improvement to do, though. One more guy who I thought was a winner from the Combine yesterday at quarterback was somebody who actually did not do anything. It was Hendon Hooker. Yeah, that's right. I said it, Hendon Hooker. First of all, his size ended up being pretty good. 6'3", 217 pounds. Big hands. Okay, that's cool. He didn't do any of the drills because he's still hurt. But the good news about Hendon Hooker is that it's been reported that he is going to be ready week 1 of the 2023 NFL season in terms of his medicals. Now, don't get me wrong, you might not want to start him day 1. In fact, if the Seahawks got Hendon Hooker, I wouldn't expect him to start day 1. He's got a lot to learn. But I think this changes the timeline now. Now you don't have to be thinking we're going to have to give him a year off to learn how to play professional football. Now you're looking at this and probably thinking, okay, well, maybe you need that year to learn how to play football at the NFL level, but it's not going to be on top of another year where you're also recovering from the injury. You're rehabbing. So I'm going to say that's great news for Hendon Hooker. Looks like he's going to be at least ready to play week 1. I don't know if he will. I don't know if he should, but it's at least on the table. All right, now let's get to some guys who kind of left me wanting at the Combine. And in this group, we have another guy who didn't really do anything. All Bryce Young did was get measured. And I will say this. It's not the end of the world. Bryce Young is 5'10", same height as Kyler Murray, and 204 pounds, which is like 3 or 4 pounds lighter than Kyler was at the Combine a few years ago. So, if the question is, has there been a quarterback in recent history who has succeeded in the NFL at Bryce Young's size? The answer is yeah. Kyler Murray's been okay, at least. You got guys like Johnny Manziel, who was a first-round pick. Now, that's obviously a really bad example, but Johnny Manziel was only a couple pounds heavier than Bryce Young weighed in yesterday. Now, I'm not sure if I totally buy it. Like, he might have been drinking a lot of water the last couple weeks, if you know what I mean. I look at Bryce Young and I see a guy who's closer to like 190. So I don't know if I totally buy it, but this is going to help him in the eyes of some, because at least it's now feasible to look at Bryce Young and go, yeah, there's a guy who at least fits the physical archetype of players who have been in the NFL before, have been high draft picks, and even been moderately successful. Personally, it's not enough for me. It's not enough for me, especially knowing that he was probably going to the Combine with the express goal of getting weighed in at over 200 pounds. So I'm still out on the Bryce Young thing. He's the one top prospect in this draft that I'm just completely not... I get it, but I don't want it. I'm not that interested in it personally. Okay, another couple of quarterbacks who didn't impress me. Tanner McKee was one of the big losers, I think, yesterday, unfortunately. The only thing you can really say about Tanner McKee right now is his size. He is 6'6", 231 pounds. So he's big. He looks like a quarterback. He looks like a franchise quarterback. Unfortunately, nothing else really went well. The drills were bleh. Now, that's not unexpected if you take a look at Tanner McKee. He is a pure pocket quarterback. There's a reason why he didn't run the 40-yard dash. He knows better. So his jumps were pretty weak. His 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle were bleh. And even worse, he looked like a labored, just plain kind of bad quarterback mechanically when he was doing his throwing session. Everything looked like hard work for him. His arm and his body just weren't working together well. He didn't look like a natural thrower of the football. And we already know about the problems he had at Stanford last year getting the ball out of his hands. So put it all together, and I think Tanner McKee, I know that there are some teams out there that are apparently looking at him as a first-round pick. I don't get it at all. So, yeah, definitely down on Tanner McKee. I was already pretty down on him, wasn't that impressed with him last year. I don't think he did anything at the Combine to prove otherwise. I thought at the very least his arm would look good when he wasn't worrying about getting pressured. But I don't know. The arm, there are some good pieces to it, but overall, meh. And Jake Haener, I'm not going to say I'm disappointed because I wasn't expecting that much more. But Jake Haener he's a Brock Purdy. Not even really a Brock Purdy. He's a little undersized. He's got a good arm for underneath throws, short stuff, really good medium stuff he can do. But it's a noodle arm. He's got a noodle arm, and he didn't test all that well. His 3-cone ended up being all right, but the jumps were meh. And he is who we thought he was, I guess. So don't get me wrong. I wasn't looking at Jake Haener as possibly being a savior, but I know there are a lot of people who are interested in him. I know that there are a lot of people out there who have him eyed as maybe a sleeper quarterback. Maybe in a Shanahan offense, right? You put him in a Shanahan offense, he can hide that noodle arm a little bit. He can make the underneath throws to Debo and C-Mac and Kittle and probably do pretty well. But no ability to really push the ball down the field, not much of an athlete. I think Brock Purdy's probably a better athlete than Jake Haener. So, yeah, I wouldn't call him a loser because I don't think less of him, but he kind of confirmed what I already thought about him that made me not very interested in him. I mean, the reason why I bring up the Shanahan offense thing is because I could genuinely see a team like the 49ers being a little interested, but as a Seahawks fan, no thank you. Two more guys here I want to take a quick look at here. Jaren Hall, and I'm talking about this guy because I know there are a decent number of Seahawks fans who have had interest. There are a decent number of Seahawks fans who have looked at Jaren Hall as possibly being a later round savior. So at the Combine, he was what I thought he was. He was a smaller guy, 6 feet flat, 207 pounds, kind of small hands. Good thrower unless you ask him to go deep. So basically, he's got a decent arm for stuff like underneath. He can get enough on it to like actually push it to where it needs to go when it's within like 15 yards of the line of scrimmage. But no real ability to push the ball down the field. His deep throws were off. So he's another one of these decent noodle-armed quarterbacks who ultimately won't be able to cut it in the NFL in all likelihood unless they land in a perfect spot. This might be another Kyle Shanahan kind of a quarterback. So Jaren Hall, not really seeing the hype. I know there are some Seahawks fans that are very intrigued by this guy, but I got to say, I think that he's kind of a dime a dozen quarterback as far as they go. I see Jaren Halls in the draft all the time. And one final guy we're going to talk about here briefly, Max Duggan, TCU quarterback. This guy had a lot to prove with his athleticism, and I came out of this draft. Look, going into the Combine, my thought about Max Duggan was that he was going to be maybe a Taysom Hill in the NFL. Not sure about that right now. Pretty small, 6'1.5", 207 pounds, not impressed. 40-yard dash was decent. 10-yard split was solid, but not a very explosive athlete. His jumps were weak. His 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle were completely forgettable. And you put that together with the fact that his arm is strong, it seems like he's got a strong arm, but he's inaccurate. He was doing the throwing session, he just missed. He was just not hitting his target. So I don't even know if Taysom Hill is accurate at this point. Taysom Hill, at least he can run some people over. At least he's a really nice athlete. This guy, people have been trying to hype him up a little bit. People are talking about him as maybe being like a more mobile Andy Dalton. I'm not feeling it, man. I'm not feeling much of anything with Max Duggan right now. So I think he kind of fell flat a little bit this Combine. He does have a big arm, but I don't know how much it's going to do for him. And those are my thoughts on the quarterbacks that went yesterday. So see you guys later on today. We're going to take a look at some of the other positions that went. More Combine stuff happening today in Indianapolis, by the way. A lot of you guys are probably watching Talk about it later. See you guys later. Go Hawks. Let me know what you thought about these quarterbacks.